the fucking thing is like, hey, you're not recording video. I'm like, yeah, no shit, I'm not recording video.
You tell him.
I'll tell him. All right, so welcome to the Cine-Scoots podcast, episode number 2. I am your host, Javier, with me.
And I'm Thano.
Thano. So, I'm very excited about today's episode because we are covering what is hands down, and this might sound like an exaggeration, but it's not, my favorite movie of 2021.
Are you serious?
I am serious. It's definitely like in the top 3 for me.
So to all of our fans.
Oh yes, all of our fans.
All of our fans listening tonight. Javi and I have not gotten a chance to really like debrief before this happens.
No, this is I think one of the first times that this happens, right?
One of the first of our 2 episodes so far.
No, but like we haven't talked about this movie at all.
Oh, at all. Zero. So, I might disappoint a friend today.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. So, what movie are we talking about today, Thano?
We are talking about Walt Disney's Maleficent. Excuse me.
Wow, the disrespect.
I mean, one James Wan's Malignant. Not benign.
Malignant. So Malignant was released in September 10th, 2021. It was a movie that came out simultaneously on HBO and in theaters. Yeah. HBO Max, right?
Did you see it first on streaming or did you see it in theaters?
Hell no, I saw this in theaters, of course.
Good man.
I had to support my boy James Wan.
So I think this, maybe not this movie per se, but at least my experience watching this movie, I think partially speaks to how theaters are still important in our society.
Sure.
And I'll be damned for all these people who are just like, I'm gonna sit at home. No reason for me to go out. There is something different about any quality of movie. There's just something different about watching it in a place where your attention is just solely focused on the film.
Yes, I could not imagine sitting through this movie like on my first viewing at home and not. I don't know. I feel like I would not be as high on this movie if I hadn't had like 100% all my attention on this.
So I think what would have happened is what happened to me. It is you are interrupted briefly with your parents asking you to bring in some groceries from Costco, and then you get to enjoy the rest of the film.
Yeah,
and when that happened to me today, I'm like, yep, this shit don't happen in the theaters.
Oh no, it does not. I mean, yeah. It could. I mean, you could get a text from your mom being like, "Hey, Thano, groceries," and you're like, "Ah."
We got Costco outside this AMC.
We got Costco outside. You got to go out and move the groceries from one cart to the other.
Yes,
but it could happen. Maybe they're going out of town, and then you need to take them home.
Yeah, through God, all things are possible.
Through God, all things are possible. So anyway, all right. So we haven't discussed this movie like at all whatsoever. We talked about that, right?
Nope.
So when you see like just the synopsis of the movie, so it says Malignant 2021, paralyzed by fear from shocking visions, a woman's torment worsens as she discovers her walking dreams are terrifying realities. Which,
excuse me, you said it's waking dreams.
Oh, did I say walking?
You said walking.
Oh, excuse me, waking dreams.
Man teaches children how to read.
I do teach children,
Disgraceful.
Oh, it'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
They'll learn.
Yeah.
We talked about this with our previous, our inaugural episode. I feel like this little like synopsis is a little bit more like accurate. I feel like you get a pretty solid sense of the movie.
Sure. So as I was watching, it did remind me of Insidious, like a lot of the imagery. And just maybe the in-your-faceness of it all. What I noticed that, for me, made this different from a lot of other horror movies, and I'm going to try to describe this as best as I can, is the monster, when you first see it, is like, kind of just like, out and about and in the open.
Yeah?
Like, there's not a lot of, oh shit, something's in the corner.
Yes.
And it's like crawling up and sneaking up on you. Maybe there's like one or two, little shots like that I remembered.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's fucking chasing it down a fire escape, and you're in the middle of Seattle. During the first kill of the not Derek, who needed to go, but so I guess the second kill of like the doctor lady. There's, I believe it cuts to her house in the middle of the day, correct?
No. It's happening at the same time. So you want to kind of like go back a little bit and like kind of get here, because like there's so much. Sure. Yeah. All right. So sure. So let's kind of go back to like the very beginning. So you were talking about how you started watching the movie and you were like, what the fuck is this? Like, I'm not dealing with this, right? So we start in this giant like fucking castle looking asylum, like the stereotypical like evil villain asylum.
Yep.
And like the lights are flickering, the lady's recording her thing, the doctor that you were talking about, and this is where I knew, I was like, oh, this is definitely not like a standard spooky house thing, because the doctors are walking down the hallway and like people are just getting fucking thrown. People are covered in blood. She walks into this like fucking room, and you see this weird like silhouette of like some weird fucking monster thing, and she's like, "You have to cut out the cancer." and right when you see that, like when you hear that, I'm just like, oh, okay. So we're going the straight cheese route on this.
Yeah, this movie does have a lot of cheese.
Oh my god, so much cheese.
Yeah. Can I get to Derek, or do I have to wait?
No. So Derek's the husband, right?
Yes.
Like right after that, like we see the main girl, right, Maddie, and her husband Derek. What are your thoughts on Derek?
All right, so before he even like said a word, like she just opened the door and her work clothes, and I saw his face, and I was like, "Look at this piece of shit." He was just like such a dick.
He's such a dick.
And even before, and first of all, his name's Derek, so like I think the options basically were either like Derek or Brad.
Ooh, yeah.
Right, for this character, like there's not other many angles you could go.
No.
I was shocked that after he hit her, he like decided to be that apologetic. Like I just like was picturing, typical sleazy scumbag boyfriend, which he was, but like but before he even spoke, I saw that man, and I was like, I hope he dies soon.
They set him up in like the most I hope he dies way. One of the things that I found the funniest, and it's not like I heard it once or I heard it twice, I heard it so much. People shat on this guy. They're like, look at this fucking piece of shit wearing his shoes on the bed.
Oh, yeah! Fucking watching boxing? Who's watching boxing in the middle of the day?
He's watching he's watching like Ultimate Fighter.
Just telling his wife, like, oh, you should stop working. Be like, I don't think there's any bread being won on this bed today, unless it's through gambling debt.
Yeah, but
yeah, he needed to go.
Yeah, he goes for like just like straight up. Like there is not even like an instant where you're like, oh, this guy might not be bad. Like as soon as you see him, you're like, all right, he looks like he got home from a construction site where he stood around for 5 minutes and then left. He's wearing his shoes on the bed, watching the UFC, which already paints you in a certain light. And the first thing he's like, talking to her, he's like, well, I hope you don't lose this fucking baby too.
So first of all, he would be into NFTs if NFTs existed.
Ooh, he'd probably be like, babe, trust me, I'm gonna buy this fucking ape and it's gonna go big. I can guarantee it. Gangbusters.
So here's a question that we can go as far down the rabbit hole as little or as much as we want. But before he bit the dust, I was thinking about him. And I was like, is this going to be a character that I'm going to love to hate, or is this just going to be a character that I'm going to like?
Hate. Uh-huh.
And I don't know the answer. Like Harry Potter fans, of the books, they will say like, "Oh, I hate Umbridge, but I love to hate Umbridge."
Sure.
Right. And this, I was just like, I hate this fucking piece of shit, and I guess that means like James Wan did his job, but I don't know if I like love to hate this fucking piece of shit. Like, I'm glad that he's dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was. That's what I was wondering in my mind. I was like, am I going to love to hate him, or am I just going to hate him? And I don't know the answer after my first.
So here's the thing. So I feel like right off the bat, James Wan is like, all of these characters are like the most heightened fucking characters that you can think of.
For
like,
sure.
I don't think there's a single character in this movie that is like restrained. And you know, good for all the actors. I feel like they all knew kind of like what they got themselves into.
Yeah.
Because like, so like when he beats her, like, it's not like, you know, he doesn't like, you know, lay the smackdown, but he like grabs her, he's like fucking slams her head on the fucking wall.
Yeah.
And like cracks that shit. When I watched it, I was like, holy shit. Even my dad watching it when we watched the movie, because I took him like the following weekend, I was like, hey, I'm gonna take you to watch this fucking movie. We're gonna have a blast.
Great part of the movie.
My dad was like, Jesus Christ. She was like, and she's with him?
Yeah.
And you know, I knew right then and there that like that had to do with something. But then they have the first scene with him where he's kind of like being stalked, right? Like the night passes, she's like, "Ah, fuck you! I'm not opening the door. You sleep on the couch," which good for her. But then they show the main bad guy, Gabriel, right? He's like sitting on the couch, and then they turn the lights on and he's gone, and then the lights go off and he's like walking around looking. And there's all these like fake outs, which I feel like were pretty good.
Yeah.
They had the thing with the blender, where the blender started like going off. And and I know a lot of people were like, ooh, the blender. Like, I was expecting like his face to go into the blender. But they didn't go that way, and I feel like it's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, are they trying to subvert my expectations again? Which I would say, for me, at least personally, I don't think so.
No, I don't think it was a. I don't think it was like a ham-fisted subversion movie.
But I still think, like, as much as I hated that guy, I feel like his kill is definitely like the lamest one.
Probably.
I was kind of hoping for something. At least the ones that we saw on screen. Right?
Yeah, Gabriel gets much more brutal, I think, as the movie.
Oh, for sure. So, we meet Maddie, and we meet Derek. Eventually, we do meet the sister. We learn that, like, he was attacked. Then she's also, like, attacked too, right?
Yes.
And they have this whole thing where, like, she's like, oh, she lost the baby. And then we meet the sister. And the sister is, like, cute with bangs. She looks like, if you take, like your definition of, like, a dorky, like, little sister.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's kind of what they did with her.
I could see this being Elsa and whatever in Frozen. I forget the sister's name.
Oh, yeah, kind of like that, yeah.
She kind of got the vibe. And, you know, what's her name? Maddie, right?
Uh-huh.
She's kind of like the Ice Queen with suppressed powers in a way.
For sure.
Yeah. So this movie is basically Frozen.
Basically Frozen.
Yes.
But there's this whole thing, like, randomly after they get attacked and everything, there's this whole thing where they show this lady at, like, the Seattle Underground tour.
Yes.
Which apparently is a real thing, which sounds kind of cool.
I would love to go to that, but by the way, I can spoil.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
I was like, that's her mom.
Was it the bangs?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a good job of casting and doing hair and makeup in a way where it was clear and obvious that, to me at least, that this was the birth mom.
Yes, and she's young. I think they did a decent job of being like, oh, you know, she did have her, like, very young, right? We do eventually learn that Madison is adopted. Like, Maddie was adopted at, like, maybe, I think in the movie they say she's like 10. But no, there's no way that the girl they have acting as her looks 10 in any way.
No.
That girl looks like she's 16.
I know the mother was 15 when she gave birth to.
Yeah, exactly.
The abomination.
Yeah, but so then the mom, that lady, like, ends up just getting kidnapped, and then she wakes up in this, like, weird
attic dungeon.
Yeah, like attic dungeon thing. And you hear. Oh, we didn't even talk about this at the beginning, where you hear Gabriel talk through the fucking speakers.
Yes, and okay. So this is where I was once again annoyed, and I think this is purely a matter of taste. But when so flashback to many years ago in my life, I used to volunteer at a hospital over the summers. I worked one of the front desks. I worked with a very annoying woman named Heather. Heather was just like very neurotic and grumpy, and you could just tell that there was some sort of deep seething frustration that was always just picking at her all the time. Well, in between my last summer there and my second to last summer there, Heather got divorced.
Okay.
She started dating this guy. She and the guy eventually broke up for reasons which I'll get into in a bit. And the last anybody at the hospital heard from her, she had to sell her eggs for money. And my dumb ass, when I first heard that, I thought that we meant like, oh, she had a farm. No, not a farm. Like her reproductive eggs. So her boyfriend that she eventually broke up with, would like come to work. I never saw him, but he was described to me. He had like long, greasy black hair. He would wear shorts and a trench coat, and he would just like sit in the lobby while Heather did her job, and it weirded everybody out. And when I saw Gabriel, that is the man that popped into my head. And then, like, his voice to me was also just this like obnoxious, grating thing. Which, I mean, so here the movie, I think you can make a solid argument is trying to be that way.
Yes.
Like I do feel that it is supposed to like feel physically uncomfortable. Yes. And I think that's just not my style, but if that's the goal, then they definitely succeeded with the voice.
Yes.
And the design for Gabriel.
Yeah, so as far as Gabriel goes, so he's played by two people, right? So the physical body is this contortionist. Her name is Marina Mizepa. She's Ukrainian, so topical right now, I suppose. But like all of her, other than obviously like the scene where we talked about where she like jumps down the like the fire escape, like all of that is her. Like there is very little CG used on Gabriel himself. She is just like really good at moving her body in these really weird fucking ways. And as far as Gabriel's voice, the actor is Ray Chase, who is a really, really like popular voice actor. Especially, he's like really big in like video games and anime. I think he does a good job at like using his voice to make this character who is both kind of aggravating and off-putting at the same time. Because like the whole time, anytime he talks to Madison, he's just like fucking with her. Yeah. Like, at one point, he's like, this dumb fucking bitch. Yeah? And you're like, oh my goodness. Excuse me. So I think they did it. It was definitely, again, I feel like it was such an intentional thing. I don't feel like anything in this movie was anything but intentional. For better or worse, right? For sure. And so we do get to this part, right? You talked about this a little bit, where this is where you were getting to, where they show like the first kill where Gabriel is like going after the doctor.
Mhm.
So they show Madison is in her house. She's like doing laundry, and like as she puts laundry in, like she turns and there's this like fucking old lady screaming in her face. And they use this in the trailer, and I think this is why a lot of people thought this was like another scary ghost movie, because you get the feeling like it looks like it's a ghost. But then they do this cool thing where like the landscape like melts away, and then suddenly we're in this lady's house. And we're seeing Gabriel like attack her, and Maddie is just like sitting there and she can't move. She's trying to move. You can see that she's trying to move and she can't. And he just like, you know, fucks this lady's shit up.
And I think what I enjoyed about that stylistically is how, kind of like I said with the trailers, kind of how it like cleverly sort of showed you what genre of horror this wasn't.
Yes.
Right? Like you said, it seems like a ghost at first. The lady's in the... At first, if I remember, it's just her like disembodied looking head that's in the that's in like the dryer window.
Yeah, so you see like her upper body, like just what you would see through the hole in the dryer.
Yes. And then she like skeets across the ground earlier, right?
A little bit.
Like where I thought she was a ghost. And then you see her face, and I was like, oh, this is some manifestation of a ghost, and Gabriel is just like one of many.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, it's revealed that no, you're actually in her house, and seeing her being murdered. And I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. Like this is where I knew that for sure it wasn't just my normal haunting movie.
Yes.
I like the way they make you think that it is for a bit, and then they're like, nah.
It was a nice, like, almost like a misdirect, where they're like, oh, this is what you're expecting, because there's that part where, like, she's walking down the stairs, and, like, she sees someone run across, like, the door.
Right.
And it's this kind of, it's like, you know, like, such a, like a classic, like, ooh, haunted house, where, like, the woman is walking down the stairs, and she sees a kid walking, like, at the base of the stairs. And it's that exact same idea, and it kind of puts that idea in your head of maybe this is like another ghost story, but like pretty much like from the very beginning, like they just go, no, that's not where we're going with this.
Yes. So I think so. Speaking as someone who is not into James Wan, but now has had that extra context from you, I could see how somebody who's like a fan of his work in general would enjoy this stylistic choice of his.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then here's where this where the next thing kind of comes in, right? So Gabriel picks up the thing that he used to kill the doctor. It's like this like award, right? It looks like what's it called?
It looks like a trophy or like a little obelisk or a pyramid.
Yeah, it's got like the medical symbol, the caduceus or whatever it's called.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm Greek, but you know, who knows? It's Asclepius' symbol, but yeah.
Yeah. And so he takes that shit and he like bashes her fucking face in with it. But then he like steals it. He like steals the top half of it that he uses to like make a weapon.
Yeah, and then I was surprised as to why. I mean, I kind of guessed why he had such an affinity for it. Because I was like, oh, obviously, he was the cancer that was cut out, and he has a relationship with his doctor. But I was surprised that like that weapon became such a motif. Like he does love his trophy knife.
Yeah. So this movie, and I know I had heard them mention it once. They were talking about like, oh, James Wan is making a Giallo movie. And at first I was like, what in the fuck is that? Are you familiar with what a Giallo movie is?
Oh, no.
So Giallo means yellow in Italian. And it comes from these novels that were really popular in like the 60s and 70s in Italy. They were basically like police crime thrillers.
Okay, yes. This sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, kind of. And so, like, all of these, most of them at least, have to do with like a killer who like dresses all black. He wears like gloves usually. He has like a very like specific weapon, right? So either they have like a knife, or they have like what's it called, with like the piano wire shit.
The Garrett?
Yes, either that, and in this movie, like, that's what this is. Like, if you think about it, it's got police people, it's got a killer doing some brutal kills, it's got, like, he's wearing, like, basically a black trench coat with gloves, and he's got, like, his signature weapon, right?
Yeah.
So, like, when I was, like, learning about, like, well, what is this movie about, I was like, oh, it's, like, checking all of these little boxes.
I remember learning a long time ago that there's a tradition of just, like, very, very gory slasher horror in Italy.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, I think this fits what I had heard about.
Yeah. And so I feel like that does fit into, like, this. If this is what James Wan was trying to make, then I feel like he did that, right? I can totally understand people saying I like this or I don't like this, but I feel like as far as what his motive was and what his motivation was to make this movie, I think he succeeded in what he wanted.
Yeah, he fulfills the objectives.
Yes. So so there's a couple other kills, you know. So he kills the doctor. There's another doctor that same thing. It looks like he's being stalked, and eventually Maddie goes to sleep and turns around, and like his fucking face is like right there in front of you.
Yep.
And then you see, this is where you get like the first like big reveal of Gabriel's face, and he looks like fucking Hamburger with a wig.
Yeah, or that meatball from
Hunger Team, Aqua Team Hunger Force.
Exactly.
Yeah. And dude, he just beats the shit out of this dude's face with his knife. And I don't know if this is where you caught it, but like that's when I noticed, like, this dude looks fucking weird. Not just the face, but the way like his body looked. I was like, this dude looks like he is like all fucked up. And I was like, oh well, I mean, if they did cut him out and like threw his ass in the garbage, I was like, that would make sense, I guess.
So I don't remember that necessarily like striking me, but I did, you know, I did expect some sort of mangled something.
Yeah.
So if he moved funny, I guess I just would have thought that was part of part of what I was supposed to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Without knowledge of the twist in mind.
Yeah. And so from there we get our introduction to our police officers, right? Yeah. Because Madison's like, well, I gotta tell the cops that like this shit is happening. Like, I not only did I witness the first person die, then I also witnessed this guy, and I'm seeing this shit happen on TV. So she goes to the cops, and they go investigate. It's because that's when we get to the scene where she gets a phone call from Gabriel.
Right.
And he's like talking to her. He's like, you know, like I'm always like here. Like they told you I was just in your head. Yeah. And like that right there is like when you're like, oh, okay. Like, is this like a demon?
So I will. All right. So there was a point early on where I deduced that they had to be brother and sister.
Yes, I feel like that was kind of like a thing for me too.
And in my head, I don't know that like I was kind of going through the possibilities of what it could be. Like I mean, I knew like malignant was a cancer term, and you had to cut out the cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm in my brain, I'm flashing through like, you know, what the twist could be. And I think maybe like conjoined twins, like, you know, went through my mind a couple times.
Uh-huh.
But I never like had that theory moment where I was like, oh, I bet they're conjoined twins. As soon as it was clear that they had like an intimate relationship, and they would talk to each other, that's when I knew like, oh, this must be, you know, they must be birth. They must be womb.
Yeah. So because of this whole interaction, and she remembers him, right? That's where she's like, "Hey, Gabriel, like cut that shit out." And she's like, "How the fuck do I know his name?" Because she goes on.
I was like, "How the fuck does she know his name?"
Yeah.
I thought I had something, but then they're like, "Oh, how'd you know his name?"
Exactly. So then they decide, hey, we're gonna do like hypnotherapy, right? We're gonna put you to sleep and see what you remember. And I shit you not, I laughed so hard. So they're doing this whole thing, and then we cut to the lady who's been kidnapped. She's like stuck in this fucking room, this like weird, like giant fucking room with a huge industrial fan. Like I'm sitting here going, like, is she in the sewer?
Oh yeah.
And so then she escapes, right? She cuts herself off, and she takes, I swear to God, she takes like 2 fucking steps, and then she just drops like a fucking sack of potatoes.
Yes.
She dropped like 40 feet.
So this is interesting because this is after I have to remember his name. Okay, this is after Krakoa chases Gabriel, right? All right. So at this point, Krakoa knows that whatever he saw is like some sort of fucked up walking abortion. Right?
I don't think he ever got like an actual look at Gabriel. So yeah, you're right. This is before that, right? It's like the night before.
Yeah.
They find the 3rd dead doctor.
Yeah. He gets some shots on him, I think. And it's obvious that he's capable of some superhuman feats.
Yes.
Right.
This is where I first was kind of confused.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you felt similar, because I was like, why? I thought Gabriel, for a while, I thought Gabriel was some sort of like demon or something. And I was like, why is this motherfucker running down the hallway?
Yeah, I did not. I forget when I ruled out demon in my mind, but I think it was pretty early. Maybe even from the opening credits, like I was less inclined to think demon, just because it was clear that something like scientific was happening. But anyway, so my impression was that Krakoa sees him, knows that some chicanery is afoot, right? This is no normal criminal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I thought that he would have thought it was near impossible or unlikely that Maddie would have been the culprit. Oh, I think he gets a sketch of him.
Sketch. Because he's like, what am I supposed to do with this shit? Put an APV for Sloth from the Goonies?
Yeah. So then, before the mama falls from the attic, fucking Detective Wanda Sykes is still like suspecting, is still suspecting Maddie. Uh-huh. And then granted, it does happen in Maddie's house, but then they arrested her. And Regina is like convinced, and I was like, Krakoa, my man, like you best speak up. Like, this was not that girl. Little did I know, right? Little did I know. And maybe he was convinced that it could be Maddie because something in his subconscious recognized that was like the same body, just obviously very, very contorted and augmented with superhuman strength.
Yeah.
But as soon as Maddie was arrested, I was like, this is some bullshit. Free this innocent poor white woman. She did
nothing wrong. But okay, so I think we've kind of skirted around the topic long enough. Like the big twist of the movie.
Yeah.
It's the fact that Gabriel is not just the cancer that was cut out from Maddie.
He is Maddie.
He is Maddie, right? So he is connected to her via the brain. And how we learned this, and this is where I told you that the theater had the biggest reaction during this. And my dad had the biggest reaction during this. We cut to the sister. She's driving up to like the fucking mountains to goddamn Arkham Asylum.
Go get her VHSs.
And yeah, to like look for VHSs. But as she's pulling up to this thing, you see like the edge of the cliff, and she is booking it, and she's going so fast. And then like the last possible second, she just stops. And the car stops, like, so fucking close to the edge of the cliff. My dad was like, holy shit, I thought she was gonna fly off the hill.
Yeah.
And everybody in my theater was, like, gasping at that. And I thought that was a very beautiful moment.
Well, that's good.
It was a beautiful moment.
That's why movies need community.
Yeah, but so this is where we do get her VHSs, right? The VHSs that show what's happening. She's being interviewed, and then eventually it does reveal that like Gabriel is this weird looking like praying mantis looking thing.
Praying mantis abortion.
Yeah, like with weird like black eyes and shit.
So it's interesting. So back to the opening credits, right? And we cut out the cancer scene.
Yes.
So I was watching in frustration, and I was like, one of these days, these like Dr. Frankenstein type horror movies that are so content on keeping the experiment alive should just get the freak of nature and put it out of its misery, like right away. Right? Don't try to like have medical science. Just like get the poor disfigured evil cretin thing, and just like smother it with a pillow. And they kind of did, right? It's revealed that they.
To be fair, they tried.
They tried, but then they realized that they had to like keep Gabriel less suppressed in her skull, right?
Yeah.
There's some beautiful footage of that.
I think the idea is that like they can't fully kill Gabriel without killing her, so they had to like cut out as much as they could, and then.
But this is where I was like, should have killed this girl.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I think the more humane thing to do in this case, if there's clearly, I know we said it's not a demon, but for lack of a better word, there's clearly a demon baby.
Yeah.
Which is growing Lord Voldemort style out of the back of her head. Like, she gots to go.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something that, at that age, I think that's probably why they wouldn't. But, like, the mom, when you pop that out and it looks like that, like, into a blender, I think.
Into a blender, and then, okay, so obviously this girl's been given up. She has no family, right? No one's gonna miss her.
Yeah.
It's a secret enough asylum where I think this is where you forgo silence, and then you just say, "Look at the flowers."
So they do show, and I don't know if you caught this. They show like a panning shot, and you see people in the background, like other doctors looking at other patients, and like there's a kid making something float.
Wow, I did not catch this.
Yeah, so like that's where I'm like, oh, if they want to keep going with this, like they could potentially bring in some other kids from this asylum and shit.
They could just make this the New Mutants movie.
The New Mutants, to be fair, I feel like this is more interesting than the New Mutants.
For sure, and I haven't even seen it. But I feel like this
is a way better movie.
Doing what that tries to do, but better.
Yeah, so we do eventually get into the police station after Maddie's been arrested for her mom falling like 30 to 40 feet from her attic. Dude, she slams on that table so fucking hard.
And the meanest cellmates. The meanest cellmates are present.
And all of these cellmates, they look like they're from a bad porno.
Yeah.
Like if you just look at a screenshot of these cellmates, you're like, oh, this is like the scene where they're gonna gangbang the new girl.
So I think the film did a good job of making things like rather ambiguous. When she murders everyone in her cell, is it a group of cops or was it cellmates?
Oh, they're all cellmates.
They are all cellmates because there is a shot where it looks like a bunch of dead cops.
So she does eventually kill a bunch of cops. So what we are actually shown is just her like massacring a whole like cell block full of women.
Yeah.
I think at one point, and I didn't get a chance to rewatch it, but doesn't she like with her just like her bare hand just like poke a hole through one of them?
She does.
Okay.
You are introduced to these women. And if you're watching at home on HBO Max with subtitles, you are introduced to them with the subtitle urinating, as there is one lady taking a pee while the rest are just harassing this poor girl. I think this is where, and once again, this is something that is up to taste. If if the movie's goal was to feel ugly, just by their characterization, the way they behaved, the way they died, right? If that was its goal,
Mm-hmm.
and it succeeded, this is where something is just not up to my taste. I was like, too ugly for me. Like, let's wrap this shit up.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy to see that the runtime was short enough. And I'm like, oh, good, we are wrapping this shit up.
Yeah.
But that to me was one of those just like very repulsing feelings while watching the film.
Oh, I love that scene, Thano.
Well, I'm glad it made you happy.
I was like, this is fucking bonkers. Like, just the idea that this woman is bending her body in like this way where like her butt is now her crotch.
So to me, it was a less artsy Suspiria. I also kind of hated Suspiria for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just the contortioning. It was more so that like those characters of those like very masculine. And I don't mean that in terms of appearance, but just like they're like curb stomping her and just like beating the shit out of her. And it is a very male portrayal of like how your worst nightmare inmates would act.
To be fair, it's also like very cartoonish, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and again, like we said, to what degree is he successful? Whatever. I don't think you're meant to not like these people. You're meant to want Gabriel to just completely decimate everyone, right? Yeah. And I feel like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Like, if you make them somewhat likable, then you're not going to have fun watching him just completely destroy everyone. But then if you make them too unlikable, and you're like, well, I don't give a fuck, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why that scene works best if you see it as the, like, oh, you're not supposed to care about these people. You're supposed to care about the two cops, yeah, and the cute girl, right?
Can we pause for a moment? And can I get you to agree that this movie would have been much better if Wanda Sykes were cast for the role of Regina?
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of
absolutely
Rachel White, excuse me. I think that would be the most hilarious thing in the world.
I feel like that's a role that was probably like if this movie had been made maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I think Wanda Sykes would have taken this role.
For Wanda Sykes, man. I hope she's doing all right wherever she is.
I hope she's
she's winning the Oscars, isn't she?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is. You're right. But then we get to like the best thing. So we have Gabriel just like running amok in the fucking prison. He kills a bunch of cops, and then we get this
Matrix.
Yes, we get the best Matrix sequence that we have gotten in like 15 years.
Oh, your roll, Buff. Slow your roll.
Donna, this was so much fun.
It was funny in terms of how sloppily it was shot. I will only go that far.
Fine. But you cannot tell me you did not laugh when
I did laugh.
Gabriel wins. Like, no contest. I don't think anyone even touches Gabriel. He won. Yeah. He has the door. He has the gates to heaven in front of him. And he grabs a chair, does a weird, like, twist, and yeets a fucking chair like 50 feet and smacks the two cops with it.
You know what I was kind of hoping for?
What?
So I grew up with all of my sad friends complaining that they were going to move to Seattle one day because they were sad. And as I was looking as to where that scene fit in the overall runtime of the movie,
mm-hmm.
I was like, we haven't hit the point in these movies where you get the exposition on how to beat the bad guy, and then this leads to the conclusion, right? Usually that happens in horror movies. You get some information that leads to the final fight, and then the beating of the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get any information on how to beat this bad guy,
mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, it's like less than 15 minutes left. And I was really hoping that it would just be revealed that after killing all the cops in the station, Gabriel was just going to go kill everybody in Seattle. I was like, I don't think anyone can stop him.
Dude, Gabriel is a fucking powerhouse.
Yeah.
He can talk through the radio. He can kind of like manipulate like electricity a little bit, but it's like never really talked about.
Yeah.
But then Gabriel goes after the mom, right?
Yes.
And he gets to the hospital, and Sydney is like, "We gotta get to the hospital." He's looking to get the mom. He's been killing the babies, and she's talking to the security guard. And his fucking heart explodes.
Yeah, I forget when I called pacemaker. But I was like, "Oh, this is a dead man."
Oh, for sure.
I like that they didn't explain. I mean, you can kind of infer that maybe that had something to do with like the electroshocking.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
But that's not necessarily confirmed. So if ever this movie wanted to be made into a franchise, they could do whatever they wanted with the origins of these powers.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked that they kept that a mystery.
Yeah, and again, I think this is a movie that you don't need that. Like, this movie is weird, it's cheesy, it's dumb as fuck.
Yeah.
But I think it's so dumb, it doesn't take itself terribly serious. Like, you cannot have a movie that starts with, "We have to cut out the cancer." And I think at one point, Gabriel, pulls a snowman and goes, "Hello, detective." This movie is so fucking stupid. And I think that's why I love it. Like, I love that it's so fucking stupid. It's so unapologetically stupid.
So here's my question for you.
Yes.
Right. So there's many different kinds of horror.
Yes.
I don't need everything to be hereditary horror, and at no point did I want this movie to be hereditary type horror. I was pretty resigned to the fact that this was, just like a dumb, ugly movie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then at the end, I dare say, he tried to shove a theme in there in the last 10 minutes. Did you feel similar?
What is the theme that you feel he was trying to cram in?
Nothing super concrete. Just some mother-daughter trauma, girl boss overcoming whatever, right? No, so I can't fully distill it into a concrete thesis. I don't think the movie necessarily does. But I feel like in that last scene, there is just something about the fact that the way Maddie talked to her sister and the way the mom suddenly becomes coherent and talks to her and Gabriel. I thought there was something where the movie was, there was a little elevation of where the movie was trying to say something.
I think so. I think there is that slight theme, and they bring this up a couple of times where Maddie's like, "Oh, I've been trying to have kids because I want a blood relationship with someone," and it's the idea that she had Gabriel, and then they ripped him out. The mom abandoned her, and all she ever had were the adoptive family, right? I would say if there is any sort of moral or message, it is that, right? You don't need to be blood related to be family. You can love your adopted sister as much as you love your biological brother, who is a fucking weird cancer monster that just rampaged 50 cops.
Yeah, I think there's also something there about finding your inner strength.
Yeah,
and I mean, she literally does.
Yeah, and the whole time, any time that Gabriel talks to Maddie, he's always like, "Oh, you're nothing," you're weak, right? It's you there is that idea of that kind of girl boss thing that you're talking about, where she does have to find the inner strength, and I guess she does by the end of the movie, right? Because there's a whole thing where she's like, they
with
think
my body
that
all the
they killed the brother sister.
right, and then
Yeah,
um,
and then you learn that she is just tricking,
you have used my powers against me.
basically. Which, I mean, I guess it does make sense. It's the idea that like Gabriel can use her body. Like everything that she does is something that ideally she could do.
Right.
Uh, so I guess it does make sense that to like flip it on its head of saying, well, anything that he can do, she can also do in return.
Exactly.
I feel like it was a little like too convenient that she was like able to be so good at it right away. But I guess in a way it does leave that possibility open. Like if they ever do decide, hey, this is a cult classic, let's make a sequel. Because I can tell you, I know we talk about the financial stuff. The money wise, this movie would not be making any sequels.
Yeah, probably.
uh,
And this was in September, if I remember correctly, pandemic-wise. Things were not bad.
they weren't bad, but they were also not super great.
Correct. But I distinctly remember going to a Halloween party in October and being like, I bet I can have a Christmas party. And that shit didn't happen, obviously.
Yeah. Well, so we run into the problem of the movie. There's a lot of things, right? You can say, oh, the movie did not do good because it was also an HBO release, which I guess if you're gonna go into a movie theater,
Yeah,
and risk the Rona, you're probably not gonna do it for a horror movie.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna save that for Shang-Chi, which was like a couple weeks before this.
Right.
You're probably, not gonna risk it for this small movie that may or may not have had weird like receptions, because like the movie, just like with Moonfall, it's also a C on Cinescoots, which means people were not super hot on it. They weren't like hating it, but they were not like praising it.
Yeah, it's also a horror movie, well before October, right?
Exactly.
So you're missing prime spooky season just by a few weeks.
Exactly. Yeah, which I thought was a weird call for sure. You would think that with the pandemic, you might want to kind of get the movie out at the best time.
Yeah.
And also, like, honestly, the movie was only in theaters for like 6 weeks.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It did not do very good. On opening weekend, it made $6 million. I think it only made $14 million worldwide opening weekend. With a budget of $40 million, it only made $30 million total domestic.
So I'm looking at our stats. I'm seeing the C cinema score, 75% on RT, 6.3 out of 10 for critics, 52% for audience, or 52%, and then audience 3.1 out of 5. And I think that's about where I would put it.
Yeah,
like for my own tastes.
I can see that. Like, so, like I said, like for me, I personally loved it because I thought it was like this really, really stupid, fun. Like, it was. I would say it's a blast, right? Like, it's not like super good. It's no Hereditary. It's not super scary. It's no Conjuring, no Insidious. Right. But like, you went in there for some fucking cheese, and that's exactly what you get.
You know what? This here's the silver lining. I think this could be the type of movie that you, if you still have DVDs, if you're that type of person, or if you just have a whole bunch of digital downloads, this might be the one that you like have friends over and you bust out in like 5 years and be like, oh, like I remember this shit. Have you seen it? And your friend's like, nah. And then you're like, let's crack open a few.
Oh, this is a perfect like drunk
jolly
watch.
Old time. You have a jolly old time breaking out something that most of the public will have forgotten. And I think that, maybe with like a small cult following, this movie's taste will only grow more savory over time.
I would be very excited for a drinking game with this movie.
I'd be down.
I would have to rewatch it like patiently and kind of go through like things that happened a lot.
Yeah.
And make like a drinking game out of it. But it could be a lot of fun watching this movie like just blasted.
For sure.
Man.
For sure.
Well, you know, I know it was definitely a busy week, so we didn't get a chance to go see a new release. But I'm glad that you indulged me and watched my stupid James Wan weird trip into a giallo movie.
Here's what I'll get cheesy and sentimental about for a moment. There is something nice about talking about movies with friends because you will gain appreciation for a movie you didn't necessarily like. Aww. Right? Like my numbers stay the same, but like I feel like if you get to talk to somebody who likes a movie you didn't like, you will appreciate that movie in a way that you didn't before.
I think that makes sense. I've had it happen where I talk to people and they're excited about a movie that I was not happy about. Yeah. And maybe, like you said, maybe it doesn't change your mind, but you kind of do get that appreciation of where they might come from, where there might be something to like.
Exactly.
That's nice. Thank you, friend. So, you know, if you liked what you heard here tonight and would like to hear more, please make sure you subscribe. We have a new Twitter.
Whoa!
Yeah, I made a Twitter. You can follow us at the Cinescoots on Twitter. You can also follow me personally at Shadows1192 at Twitter also.
And you cannot follow me.
Yeah, don't follow Thano. He's too much of a good boy. But anyway, you can follow us. We'll see you next time. I'm Javier.
I'm Thano.
And this has been the Cine-Scoots Podcast. Bye.
Bye.